Hi guys, in this session we're going to be talking more deeply into modeling and just going to go create a box, and I'm going to press F4 to turn on wireframe unshaded or edge faces. Okay, you can access it from here as I said before. So wireframe, default shading and edge faces. I'm just going to create this box with two segments on each side, or maybe three. Let's make them three. Okay, and now I'm going to just go to modifier, and I'm going to add something called edit poly. Okay, edit poly is one of the most important modifiers, and you're going to be used mostly in modeling, especially in geometry modeling. So any object you add edit poly, I'm just going to show you a bit about the edit poly. It's not a small modifier, it's really a huge modifier, which is a bit complicated. I'm just going to go through it step by step and just go through the important parts. And this is not just it. You can see I can change some of the menus, and I'm going to talk all about this. So just going to close it back. I'm going to right click here and close all to make it a bit smaller so it looks a bit neat. First of all, in the edit poly modifier, I can open this arrow here and I can access the sub element, which is, for example, vertex, which is each point of these. I can just select one or more. I can control add selection, and I can alt and click and drag and subtract from selection. So I can select this, control select this, or alt select this to subtract. Same thing as the selection. So I can select now and I can move, okay, or I can rotate, or I can scale. So I can deform my object however I want. For example, I can select all these and scale them to end up something like that, and so forth. I can access edges, which is the line between one vertex and another. I can select one or more edges. Same thing, I can move, rotate, or scale. I can access polygons, which are the faces. I can add more polygons by control, and I can add less polygons by alt. The element is the whole element. I end up with the border, which I don't have here. I'm just going to select one polygon and I'm going to press delete. So I delete this polygon, and you can access the inner side of this box. The border is basically this set of edges that's surrounding this hole. So if I click here, I select this hole, okay, which is the border. So now I can access each one of those. If I access the parameters of it, I can go to selection, okay. Inside the selection, I have the first icons, which are the same as the ones here. Vertex, edge, border, polygons, and element. Same thing as those, okay. So I can access them from here, or I can use the shortcuts, which are number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5. Okay, so the numbers, of course, I'm using the numbers, not the number lock, which are on the right, the ones on the top of the keyboard. Okay, so I can use shortcuts. So if you see somebody working without pressing in here, basically is using the shortcuts. So if you go selection of anything, let's say polygon, and I selected these kind of polygons, you can see that I selected all the polygons, the one from the front and the one from the back. If I want to select only the one visible, only those visible, okay, all you need to do is press ignore backfacing. So I'm going to ignore all the faces that are not facing me. So in this case, I'm just going to select the visible ones. These are not selected, these are not selected, and the one at the bottom are not selected. This is a very good thing. Sometimes if we are, let's say I'm creating a character and I'm working with his eyes, by default, I might be changing the back of his head by mistake. So I just make sure I turn on ignore back facing, so I don't adjust the ones in the back. The second important thing I might use is ring and loop. It is used only in edges. If you see, it's turned off, it's turned off, it's turned off, and it's turned off. In all the others, except edges, you can see they are turned on. This is an edge. If I press Control, click, and the continuous edges, Okay, all the continuous edges. When I select all the continuous edges, I end up with something called a loop. So instead of doing this whole process, all I need to do is click one and press loop. It will select the whole loop. Press any edge and press loop to select the whole loop. Okay, just make sure we can select vertical or horizontal loops. The other thing is ring. If I select this edge and the parallel ones all along until I go back to the first point, which is here, okay, this is called a ring. Instead of doing the whole process again, all I need to do is press one and then press ring, and then I select the whole ring. These are very good things for selections. We will use them later on. Because they are important, we have shortcuts for them. If I press double click on an edge, it will select the loop. Double click on this edge, it will select the horizontal loop and vertical loop, depending whatever you want. If I press on this edge, shift and press to the one parallel to it, I will select the ring. So you can use them from here, or you can use the shortcuts if you want. So that's basically the first tab, which is the selection tab. And then I'm gonna go to soft selection tab. In the soft selection tab, it's really obvious that makes things a bit more soft and more organic. If I have this sphere, it will make sense more. I'm gonna add edit poly, and I'm gonna select this vertex. If I'm gonna move this vertex, you can see this vertex move by itself because it's working something like we say it's hard selection instead of soft. If I want to access soft selection, I turn on soft selection, use soft selection, so I turn it on, and you can see I can have some kind of colors in here. I can use the fall off to make this point affect other points, more points or less points. So let's say something like that. The red dots are 100% affected, the orange are less affected than the yellow, and then the green, then the cyan, then the blue, and then the white ones, they are 0% affected. So if I move this point now, you can see it doesn't move by itself, it just affects all the others. If I select these points in here and I move, you can see I can move things a bit more organically. So this is used more for organic movement and modeling, so I use soft selection instead of the hard selection. This is the hard selection and this is a soft selection. Okay, so this is in terms of soft selection. The third option is edit geometry. Inside the edit geometry, I care about one option, which is called the attach, and definitely with it comes the detach. What does it mean? If I have this object, I want to attach this box to it, so I press attach and I click on the box, it will become the same object. So now they are one object, they are not a group, they're just attached to each other, which means if I select these points, I can select with it these points and I can move them together. Or if I use, let's say, in my case, soft selections, okay, you can see if I select only these points in here, and I move them, you can see the other area is affected because they are considered one object. Okay, this is attach inside edit geometry. If I want the opposite way, I want to detach stuff, so I can. If I select this, let's make sure this is selected properly. Let's say I'm going to select this top. Okay, this top area of the sphere. Okay, and I want to detach. So if I want to detach, just go always to the settings. So you can detach with an option of detaching as clone or without clone. I don't care about this element. I care about the clone one only. So if I detach as clone, which means it's going to copy the selection and I'm going to detach another part. Okay, if I don't say as clone, it's going to just cut it and then I'm going to end up with a hole in here. So I'm going to do them both. So I'm going to detach this not as a clone. I'm going to turn off the edit poly to be able to select, and now I move this up. So you can see there's a hole. So if I select now this, and I'm going to do the same thing from the bottom area. So I'm going to select this area, and I'm going to go detach. This time I'm going to select detach as clone. Turn off the edit poly so I can be able to select this part, and then I move this down so you see the difference. I just did a copy of it and detached it. In this case, I just detached it from the original shape, so I end up with an empty space. Okay, this is the difference between detach as a clone or not as a clone. So basically, this is concerning the added geometry. I still have one more option inside the editing, which are the easy editing. Okay, so I'm just gonna delete these. Just gonna add this sphere. I'm gonna add an edit poly to it, and I'm gonna access the paint deformation. Paint deformation is basically something like sculpting. I can sculpt this geometry, okay, by adding a push and pull effect or relax. So if I'm gonna push, for example, or pull, I just press on this button, push and pull, and then you can access. I'm just gonna change this color because it's bluish. Okay, so you can see there's a blue brush in here. Okay, this brush, I can change the value of it, I can change the size of it and the strength of it. Okay, so if I click and drag, I will pull. If I press Alt and click, it will push. So I can deform and sculpt this object as I wish. For example, if I want to create, let's say, some kind of quick character, I can just click something like this. This is, for example, the nose, and this is the mouth. Okay, something very quick. And I can go to relax, and I can make this relax a bit. Okay, you can see the value is a bit high on the relaxing and the push and the pull. I can change this from here. This is the brush size, and this is the brush strength. For example, I can make it, for example, 0.2, which will make things more subtle. And you see, it's relaxing in a very small effect. Okay, so I can change this from something like this, from a sphere to something deformed. Or I can just pull again and make the value a bit higher, for example 1, and then I'm gonna for example do some horns, for example, something like that. And then definitely I can just go to the vertex or polygons or whatever, and then I can adjust again. Okay, so I can just move and select and deform it again and again. Okay, so these are my polygons, these are whatever, and I can just do whatever. So for example, I'm just going to move this and move them, for example. Okay, just going to delete this and this again. Now I'm just going to go to the edit, which are the most important. So if I have this box again, I'm going to have an edit poly. Okay, these are the options that we talked about. If you go and select, let's say, vertex, you can see that I have a new tab. It's called Edit Vertices with its controls. If I go to Edges, you can see Edit Edges with its controls. Same thing for the borders, same thing for the polygons, and same thing for the elements. So that's why the menu is much bigger than how it used to be. So if I access this box, and I go to, for example, edges, I'm just going to go through the edit edges and edit polygons because they are mostly used. The other ones are less used. Definitely they will be used if you want to go like really detailed models later on. But for our case as an introduction, we're just going to go through these two. Inside the edges, we go edit edges. I have two things I have to mention. It's chamfer and connect. What does chamfer means? If I have this edge selected, I'm just going to change also the color because it's red. So this edge selected. If you go to chamfer, just don't go to chamfer button, just go always to the settings. Why the settings? Because I end up with my options. I can change my options. So this is chamfer. What's happening is basically splitting this edge into two edges. One is going towards this line and the other one's going horizontal to the other line. One vertical, one horizontal. And this is the distance of the chamfer. This is the amount of the chamfer. The second option is basically how many segments I want. If I want it to be sharp or I want it to be curved. The more segments, the smoother it will be. When I'm done, check to save it and X to cancel. Okay, so if I want to save it, I'm going to just press yes. So now it's saved, and now I can access each one of those new ones in terms of polygons or whatever. So I can add details if I want. So I want this box to be this way. I can also access this edge when I go to chamfer, and without pressing anything, you see it will take the same value the last time I used it. So if I want it to be the same value, then I press OK, and then this chamfer is exactly the same as this one. Great. This is in terms of chamfering. Connections is basically if I select an edge and a parallel edge to it, if I press connect, I will connect them with a perpendicular edge. I can add these segments, have more segments, and I can use the second option, which is pinching. I can pinch them away or pinch them towards each other. And I can slide them left or right. So it depends on the details. The problem about this, okay, it's basically, in terms of modeling, it's a bit problematic. Usually, each polygon, if you want to talk proper modeling, each polygon should have 1, 2, 3, 4 edges. If we want to check them, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4. If we check this, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. They are all correct. If I want to check these polygons in here, this polygon and this polygon, you can see that they are not 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And same thing here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I want to do a clean modeling, okay, all the polygons should have 4 sides. Okay, so now this edge is going to have a problem later on, if especially we want to smooth it out or start deforming it, it's going to end up with some kind of pinching in here. To make a clean model, the edges should loop all the way around the box. In this case, I did this wrong. It's not a big deal. I will do it again. So what I need to do is to delete these edges. So if I want to delete any edges, all I need to do is select the edge or the edges. So Control, I can add to selection, and press Control Backspace. Okay, and then you will delete it properly. Don't press Backspace by itself. You think it deleted properly, but if you go to Vertices, you can see that the vertex still there. And this is the problem we're going to be facing later on. This kind of black thing and pinching. So if I want to do a clean delete, Control Backspace. If you go to vertex now, there's nothing. Okay, so now I'm gonna just select this edge. I'm gonna select the ring. So I press Shift and press on the parallel one, or you can go to Selection and press Ring if you want. And now I'm gonna go Connect, and I'm gonna add my connection whatever I want. So let's say I'm gonna add 2. I'm gonna pinch them away from each other, something like that, and I'm gonna press Yes. So now I added 2 segments on the sides, so I can work on this model. Okay, and all the polygons in here are 4-sided because I divided them all the way with a loop. Okay, so now this is a very clean model. Now, if I want to access the edit polygons, so this is concerning edit edges, chamfer, and connect. If I want to access polygons, I will end up with something called edit polygons, and I'm going to talk about extrude, bevel, and bridge. If I go extrude, I'm going to select this polygon, or this and this. So I'm adding Control to add. So I'm going to select all these edges, or sorry, all these polygons. I'm going to do the same thing in here. I'm going to add all these polygons, and I'm going to go extrude. Same thing. I'm going to go always to the setting. Don't press on extrude. Settings, so I can enter values. So if I go extrude, this is what's going to happen. It's going to be pushed outward or inward. This is an extrude tool. Another thing about extrude, if you see, I suppose that this goes straight and this goes straight. By default, they go per, let's say, an average of all the faces. If you see, the average of those faces are something like this. That's why it's going this way. But if you want to change this, we can do. You go access this group. Okay, and you have different options. Group normals, they go all together in one direction. Local normals, each one goes perpendicular to its face, but they are always attached to each other. That's why this polygon over here, it's much bigger than the polygon original in here. So it just grew, okay, in here, so it stays attached to these. And the third option is basically by polygon. It's the same thing, but the problem is they will not be attached. They will go just the same size and detach from each other. So we end up with this kind of shape. Depends on what you want. This is what I want. Then I'm going to press OK. I'm done with it. I'm going to select this polygon. I'm going to select this polygon. I'm going to do extrude again. Let's say this is the same value I want, or maybe less or more. And now I want to add this extrusion multiple times. So I can add the plus instead of saying yes, and then going extrude again, yes, and then extrude again. We can press plus. It will do again, and again, and again, and again, and again. When I'm done, yes, save it. So I ended up with this kind of thing. Great. This is concerning extrude. The second option is basically bevel. I'm just going to select all these faces and I'm going to go bevel. What does bevel mean? Bevel is basically, it has two options. One of them, which is extrusion, I can go in and out. And the second one is scaling, which is the beveling part, which is going in and out, scaling in and out. In my case, for example, I can just create a bevel amount, let's say something like that. Okay, which I created a small frame in here, and then I can do also a scale, so I can scale it like, let's say, diagonally in and out, or just scale 0. In my case, I want it this way, so I'm going to press yes, and I can do extrude now, and maybe do a small extrude, something like that, and then do bevel again. Okay, just my bevel wanted to be as a group. I think I've done this before, wrong. Okay, just make sure in here it's group, and this is my scale. Okay, and then I'm going to do extrude, and my extrude is going to be not by polygon, by group, so they don't go each part by itself. And then I'm going to do bevel again, same thing, yes, and then extrude again, yes, and then bevel again, yes, and then extrude again. Okay, you see what I'm getting, this kind of effect. And now I'm gonna do bevel again, and just gonna make sure this is small, something like that, and then I'm gonna extrude now inward. So I can go all the way inward if I want to, and I check this. Okay, I'm just going to push it a bit further, something like that. You see what I've created? This kind of shape. So I just do it with bevel and extrude. Now if I want, I can do bevel. Same thing as the extrude. I can bevel as a group or local loom or by polygon. In this case, I'm going to extrude bevel by polygon. So you can see I'm beveling each piece by itself, something like that. And now I'm going to go extrude, and now my extrude is going to go inward. And I ended up with this kind of detail. Check, I saved it. So now I'm doing bevels and extrude. I can go like really crazy with the bevel and extrude. The last option I want to create is basically bridge. So I can select the polygon from here and one opposite to it. So same thing, I'm just going to choose one at a time. So this kind of thing, and I'm going to press bridge, and it will bridge them together. And I can add segments to the bridge. I can taper the bridge if I want. Okay, I can twist the bridge. I can change the bias of the bridge. You can just play around with those values and see the difference. Usually they're not much used. The only thing I would use is basically the segments if I want to add segments, and done. So this is my segments. For example, I said yes. Now I can select this polygon and this polygon, this polygon and this polygon, and I'm going to do the same thing in here. So I create something like that. Okay, and the last thing in here I cannot, so there's no segments down. So I'm just gonna bridge. Okay, so there's a problem in here, as you can see. I think they misunderstood it, but it's fine. I have to do it one by one. So I do this bridge by itself, and then this bridge by itself, and then this bridge by itself. Sometimes Max doesn't understand that this is what I want. I have to spoon feed it. Okay, so there's a problem here. That's why there was an issue. I think from the one before. Anyway, so I just ended up with this kind of shape. Remember, this was a box, a regular box. I ended up having it something like really totally different than a box using the edits. So edit edges, I used chamfer and connect. Edit polygons, I've used extrude, bevel, and bridge. And this is basically my polygon tools that I will be using throughout the modeling process. Okay.